Whew. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the 28th of hopefully many episodes of Bardadvice, a D&D slash tabletop RPG slash life podcast where I, Charles Chaz Yazik, the Bard, the DM, however you may know me, do my best to answer those questions. I hope that everybody's doing well. Here we are again on Friday. Good to see everyone, all the regulars, where everyone knows your name. Made it through another week. It's been busy town USA for me on this end. In fact, I'm quite proud of myself for scrambling the scatterbrained thoughts together enough to get this stuff ready for the podcast, because when I woke up this afternoon, I didn't have anything prepared. So I think, considering, we've done pretty good. We're going to charge forward with the podcast. So, at the top, we would like to remind everybody to please send their advice questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. If you would like to get some merchandise, you can do so by going to manshorts.com. And if you would like to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo at Yazik, Yahzick. I am closing in on getting the album completely organized where I want it to be, and no dates on that, but soon. Soon. Also, for the first time on this podcast, this evening, I would like to let everyone know that this episode is sponsored by World Anvil. And if anyone doesn't already know, World Anvil is an online set of world-building tools that helps writers and game masters create, organize, and store their worlds. With it, you can cross-reference world info with wiki-like articles. You can make interactive maps, historical timelines, diplomacy webs, organizational charts, family trees, bloodlines, random generators, world-building prompts, and an RPG game manager. So, they got it all. It's got also organizational capability that doubles as a novel writing software, and on that note, I intend to use that soon as such, because I've got a novel that I'm rewriting, so I'll be using it myself. If you would like to get yourself World Anvil, or you've considered getting it in the past, you can use our code MANSHORTS to get 40% off any of the annual memberships if you just go to worldanvil.com. You can also click the link in the description of this video, and that'll send you there directly. It's a really cool website. It's a really great tool, and the owners are really cool people. They're nice people, and they're in the nerd community themselves, so the people that are behind the product actually know what they're doing and use it. So go check it out, worldanvil.com. Tell them Manshorts sent you. Or in this case, tell them Bardadvice sent you. So, also, other things, while we're at it, at the beginning, would like to thank all of our patrons, all of our members, all of our super chatters, and remind everyone to please like, comment, rate, share, and review on your respective platforms. Those are always very helpful. 5 stars or whatever it is on your platform. If you're listening to it and you like it, give a review. So, moving forward for Art Corner this week, I actually would like to share with everyone some things that I've been developing in the last few days in terms of our logo. So, I've spoken before publicly, and I think on this podcast, about how we're going to be taking a little bit of a break from the editions, not permanently, but we're going to just be making some other content. It's going to give Justin and I an opportunity to kind of branch out and do things away from the table, which we've done before. We'd like to readdress that because we've got some really funny ideas that I think are going to be great. And as such, in kind of just the revamping of that, I've done a redesign on our logo. So this is the new logo that will be what is now the Manshorts guy. I developed it with Midjourney. I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's cool. I think it's clean. So what is now the Manshorts guy is going to look like this. I wanted to share this with people, particularly with people in the podcast that are like the diehards, ride or die fans that watch our content. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up so that they don't like see it and they're like, whoa, what is this? So This is not a scenario where we've like sold the channel or anything like that. It's just a little bit of a rebrand on the existing stuff. This is the banner. The banner has already been updated actually on the main channel. If you go to it, you can see that. I'm pretty proud of that too. Again, the backdrop of which was also developed with AI. So as you know, a lot of my stuff and our stuff is probably going to be moving forward, at least from an image visual perspective. I've been using AI a lot. I think it's really fun and cool. I encourage everybody else to do it. Talk to GPT, play with Midjourney, Leonardo, or any of those image generators, because it's the future. And within 18 months, everybody will just have a thing on their phone. So you might as well start talking to it now. So now that we've got all of that stuff out of the way, let's get into some questions that we actually have for this week. And we've got, so just as a heads up, we've got this week 5 questions and then a follow-up that's kind of a question. You guys can make the call on that, but let's just hop in. So the first question this week, because I do have a list of names that I can reference if I actually pull it up, is from Mike. So Mike asks, are there any essential spells or magical items that I should use or be aware of as a bard? Starting our campaign soon. Thanks in advance for any advice. Okay, thanks for the question, Mike. Let's see. I made some notes here on it. Well, the first thing I put was it depends on the bard, obviously, but that's, you know, a little bit of a cop-out answer, so I don't want that to be the final one. I put, in a general sense, it depends on the bard, but in a general sense also, anything that buffs, anything that's buff spells, like either specific spells or anything that increases your ability to have more effective spell power, if that makes sense. Excuse me. And then also bardic inspiration, anything that does that. What was something I wrote down was what are those pipes of, is it called the pipes of horror? Where you can like scare monsters away or enemies, I guess, rather away by playing these pipes. But I guess that's a wondrous or magical item. It's less of a, spell. Yeah, healing I think is always, any kind of healing spell is always good to have as the bard, even if you have a healer, because it's just nice to have somebody else that can heal, even if it's not great. I've experienced that firsthand in many campaigns where it's like the cleric's out of slots. So now we need somebody. Can anybody do minor wounds? Even minor wounds can be the difference in life or death between characters. So healing spells, just to kind of have that as an option to give your bard more utility among the party. And any kind of like magical instruments or buffs, like spells, abilities, / things that increase that firepower of said instrument, right? Because Pipes of Haunting, thank you. Causes Fear, DC 15. That's pretty beast. Is that an expensive or rare item? I think it's uncommon. I looked it up, but like, I don't think that's necessarily too broken of a thing, especially for a bard. So I would allow that as a DM. Also remember to buff your party and debuff the enemy. Preventing damage is more efficient than healing it. Oh, that's a good call, Flint. Yeah, so that's a good point when it comes to like support stuff. It's not always about what you are doing directly. It's how you're helping your teammates beyond just inspiration. So to Flint's point, buffs and debuffs on the enemy. So any kind of spells that maybe not necessarily do damage, but like a spell that you could cast on the enemy DPR or the enemy tank that, you know, gives them a mischance. That's a huge deal. And, you know, come to think of it, well, I don't know if I want to spoil the end of the campaign that we did, but let's just say that we found out pretty quickly how insane Hypnotic Pattern can be in fighting the BBEG of the We Play campaign. So the smallest things like that can make the biggest differences. So I would say any kind of stuff And maybe also just a good note in general would be stuff that other people can't do. So to that point, because depending on what your party composition is, you've got somebody that's doing damage, you've got somebody that's doing heals, somebody that's casting spells, so it's a little bit of both. But it's good to have somebody, and maybe I'm a little biased because I've always tried to be this player, but I think that there's always good to have somebody that is dabbling a little in something or things that the rest of the party really isn't. So, like the healing thing earlier, even if you have a healer, if you only have one healer, it's a good idea for you to be able to heal. And it's kind of like with bards. Bards primarily derive their power and ability in combat from their magic and from their instrument, but that doesn't mean that a bard can't use an actual martial weapon to either attack, to defend themselves, or to attack. And you might even build a bard who is that way, who fights almost more like a fighter. I don't know why you would, unless you had some sort of an ability or buff that allowed you to use your spell casting modifier to contribute to the weapon, in which case it's a totally different conversation. So I think that overall it depends on the kind of bard that you have as to how you want to play it. But I think it's a cool idea to keep yourself. I think that the essence of the bard is that it's the jack of all trades. And so I think that the backstory of your bard would likely lead you in the direction of how you're going to play that character. And as such, assign your spell slots accordingly, I guess. So if you've got a bard that is a real trickster, consider that when setting up your spell slots for them to do things like vicious mockery. Most bards are going to have that anyway, but you know what I mean. Like, just keep those kind of themes and things in mind when you're composing the spells, and I think you won't go wrong. And same comes with, like, magical items and stuff. You do not have to be the horny bard. Yes, that is true. There are many options. In fact, one that comes to mind is my friend Justin ran a bard named Cadwallader, and his whole bit was that he was a stand-up comedian, but he was not good. So he wasn't funny, and essentially as a result he just told dad jokes all the time. But I think that that's a great example of a fleshed out bard character avoiding the stereotypical tropey stuff of the quote-unquote horny bard. Anyone see the new D&D 1 Bard update? You can pick between Divine, Primal, or Arcane spells. Yes, Bean. We are going to talk a little bit about that this episode because there's a question about it. So cool that you brought that up. But wait, let me see what you said. You can pick between Divine, Primal, or Arcane spells. Then at level 10, you get Magic Secrets to learn all spells. Yeah, it's going to get weird if that's going to become the standard, because I think when you do stuff like that, it ultimately lessens the incentive for people to do different classes. It's kind of like that with the pluses and minuses to any kind of racial modifiers. It's like, well, if everything's the same, then what's the real incentive? Or rather, if you can make everything in the same, then the only real incentive to have a different race in that regard would be for RP purposes, which is fine. But if that's the direction it's going, it seems like it's going to rely a lot more on the player's RP than the actual mechanics. So, dad jokes are funny. Hey, Matthew, welcome. Glad you could make it. Welcome to your first live bardadvice. We up in here. So thank you for the question. I hope that answers you, Mike. Appreciate it. Let's move on to question numero dos. Question number 2 is, in fact, about the playtest material. So it is from Kaylee. And Kaylee asks, have you had a chance to review / formulate an opinion on the recent Unearthed Arcana playtest material? So, the short answer is no. I haven't had a chance to fully review it, although, that said, I have looked at it a little bit. And I did put a link in the description that is to, that's to an article. Sorry, I'm looking at I'm trying to use my computer window and stuff while I'm talking, so it's looking up the new stuff. This is an article that was on Games Radar, But it talks about all of the major changes. So we're going to talk about them as I can see them. So let's go through it. Here are the headlines. And this is really from the article. I should give credit to Benjamin Abbott wrote this today, earlier today. D&D stuff. So, headlines. Here we go. Monk stuff. The martial arts die now uses a D6 instead of a D4, as if monks need buffing. Key points have transformed into martial discipline to represent the self-control of these warriors. They can still be used to activate certain moves like Flurry of Blows. But Step of the Wind now allows you to make both a disengage and dash action instead of having to choose one. Yikes. It's a small tweak, but will have significant impact on how maneuverable the monk is. Yeah, they've just turned them into like Super Saiyans, I guess. The Way of the Four Elements subclass has been totally reworked and turned into Warrior of the Elements. This enhances unarmed strikes with elemental power and allows monks to create a burst of elemental energy as an area of effect attack. If enemies within the area fail a dex throw, they take damage of the chosen type equal to 3 rolls of your martial arts die. And they've altered Deflect Missile, allowing players to hit much harder if they successfully thwart a ranged attack. Before, they could fling projectiles back for an attack using a monk weapon profile. In this version, whoever you hit must succeed on a dex throw or take damage equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die. At 13th level, you can use this ability to deflect any kind of ranged attack, including spells. Gee whiz, dude. What is with the buffs for monks? I'll never understand. All right, let's look at druids. Wild Shape's gone back to its old format where you choose a beast that has a maximum CR of 1/4. It's a big difference to the prior playtest version where you used a universal stat block for creatures of the land, sky, and sea. Oh, good. It's not just a rerun of what we've seen before. Now beast forms with a swimming speed are allowed from the start. And Wild Shape has become a bonus action for all druids. Yo! You can't be knocked out of your Wild Shape if you lose hit points equal to the beast form stat block either. Instead, you'll stay in that shape until your druid character drops to 0 HP, or you decide to alter your appearance first. Oh, that's really cool. So you can maintain appearance. That's pretty neato. Primal Order lets players emphasize armor or spell casting at first level, the Warden or Magician, respectively. The Druid has to prepare or choose a number of beast forms per day. This is to help both the player and the Dungeon Master know what the character can transform into at any time, rather than the latter being forced to leaf through countless books to find the right and obscure stat block at the drop of a hat. That's a good call. That's smart to do. Making the druid prepare, and it seems fair considering if you're gonna make Wild Shape a bonus action, they should have to prepare. Cause insane to just be like, I can turn into any of these things on this list. Like, I don't know about that. There's a new subclass called Circle of the Sea. Besides letting you breathe underwater from 6th level, it allows druids to take on aspects of stormy oceans for Wrath of the Sea ability that strikes foes with thunder damage along with pushing them away. Hey Marcus, welcome. We're just talking about the new playtest stuff. A friend of mine, when he made monks, would figure out how to get like 4 or 5 attacks at first level and could pretty much kill anything low level. Yeah, monks can pretty much kill anything the whole way. They're busted, dude. In particular in 3.5, but the stuff that's going on in 5e with them now is crazy town. All right, Bard stuff. So Bean mentioned earlier, you can choose the Arcane Divine or Primal spell list to represent your character's unique training. It lets you decide what kind of bard you want to be. You can be a classic trickster, someone able to influence nature, or a musician with ties to a religious institution. As an example, being a primal bard lets you lead various animals like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. That's pretty cool. New College of Dance has been added as a bard subclass. Amazed that didn't already exist, right? And it helps players move allies, improving their initiative and getting them out of danger without provoking opportunity attacks, for instance. Oh, hey, there you go, Mike. There's a move. College of Dance. Talk about being able to help buff your team. You can move people around. You can move them out of danger without provoking AOs. That's crazy town. Force enemies to dance, thus conferring disadvantage on most rolls. It's hilarious and should cause plenty of chaos at the table. The Vicious Mockery cantrip is now Bard exclusive. Good. It provides D6 instead of a D4. Good. Bardic Inspiration is turned to the 2014 version, used in response to a failed D20 check. Plus, the healing option to the previous Bard playtest has been removed because in playtesting, the healing option was encouraging too much usage hoarding, and the Bard not using Bardic Inspiration at all. Man, I feel like I think Bardic Inspiration should just go back to the +1, man. I think that the die complicates it. Counter Charm has returned, and now can be used as a reaction rather than an action. Nice. And at 20th level, you always have Power Word Heal and Power Word Kill prepared and can use them on 2 targets rather than the usual 1. Yes. Good. Sounds good to me. The Cleric has been finely tuned a little, it says. Divine Order is a way of easily deciding what kind of cleric you want to be. It's available at 1st level. You can either be a protector with an emphasis on heavy armor and martial weapon proficiency, or a, I can't say this word, thaumaturge. That's more of a warrior scholar. The latter has an extra cantrip and gets bonuses to religion checks. Divine Intervention is now more reliable, whereas it was a bit random as to whether you succeed before. Now you can automatically cast a divine spell at 5th level or lower as an action without prep or materials. Lay on Hands. Oh, this is Paladin stuff. Lay on Hands is a bonus action now. That'll come in handy. It means you can heal allies as well as attack on the same turn. That is pretty dope. You can have certain smite spells prepared and can use one for free without expending a spell slot between long rests. Plus, most smite spells are paladin exclusive. Weapon Mastery has been added from 1st level. Ooh, yeah, and Weapon Mastery I'm excited about that they've added. Spells have changed slightly, with spell prep not being tied to your spell slot level anymore. In addition, cantrips have been removed in favor of Weapon Mastery, and you can now change one prepared spell after finishing a long rest. Normal smite's gone, HTAP says. Ranger. Deft Explorer ability allows you to choose one of your proficiencies to have expertise in from level 1, along with providing advantage on certain checks for 2 types of terrain, like Arctic, Grassland, Forest. That's pretty cool. One of these terrain types can be swapped for another during long rest. That's neat. I do like that. That is one of the things that I think is cool about the Weapon Mastery thing, is that from what I understand, you can do a Weapon Mastery and you can change that on a long rest. It's kind of neat, I suppose. The Beastmaster element has been reworked with stat blocks being included right there in the subclass, and the Gloomstalker is being introduced as a standard subclass rather than being limited to separate books as before. Rangers now have Weapon Mastery. The Courage Barrage spell is a Ranger-exclusive spell with increased damage that allows you to strike multiple times and is always prepared from 9th level. Similarly, the Conjure Volley spell is always prepared from level 17. And finally, some notes on the Rogue. Sneak Attack doesn't need to use the attack action anymore. Instead, it's simply used once per turn if you have advantage on an ally adjacent to your target. That really powers up the Rogue in a big way. Hold on. What does that say? Sneak Attack doesn't need to use the action attack anymore. Instead, it's simply used once per turn if you have advantage or an ally adjacent to your target. That seems kind of crazy, because I feel like advantage does not necessarily mean that you are catching them by surprise, right? From what I understand, the advantage mechanic can have several different causes, whereas my understanding of sneak attack damage always was if they can't see you. Like that, you know, or if you were flanking them, which, you know, that makes sense with the ally adjacent to the target thing, but it just seems like it's less about the sneak now and more about the damage. So you can tack sneak attack onto other attacks that are not explicitly attack actions, like Green Flame Blade or similar cantrips. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's okay. I don't know. That's true of 5e already. Really? I did not realize that. Well, I mean, shows you how much I pay attention to mechanics. What else have we got on the rogue? Cunning Strike has been added, which allows you to trade sneak attack damage for a defined effect like disarming, tripping, or poisoning your opponent. That's cool. Wish you would just add that mechanic to combat in general. You can also quickly withdraw without allowing for an AO from them. Oh, I guess it's an OA these days. Rogues can have weapon mastery from first level. Steady aim from a previous book has been brought into the main class, offering advantage on your next strike. So, my overall thoughts, at least on just this stuff that I've read and seen, and I'm sure that there are more things, I think that the monk is just like always just overpowered. The monk, I think that the monk has been OP since like 3E. I like the improvements on the druid. I think that's really cool. Not only that Wild Shape's a bonus action, because I feel like it should be, right? Like that's your defining characteristic of your class. And I mean, while we're at it, bring back Druid Companions, but that's a conversation for another day. I like the improvements to the Druid. I think that they're good. I like the improvements to the Bard. I don't really care much or know much about the Cleric and the Paladin, but it does seem good that Lay on Hands is a bonus action. That seems like, you know, again, I think that if it's a thing that is your defining characteristic of your class, whatever that thing is should be a bonus action, because it's built-in incentive to do that thing. Ranger seems okay. I feel like the Rangers are so they don't get love. I don't know what people's beef is with Rangers. We've talked about that before. And then the Rogue, whatever. I think Rogues are the sneak attack thing. I think that mechanic's not all that it's cracked up to be. So those are my thoughts, and that's where we are on that. We don't know obviously if those are going to be like permanent rules or permanent things, but that's what we got. So thank you for the question. It was cool to go through all of that, I think, for everybody. And I've linked that article in the description if you want to go and look at it yourself. And, of course, there are also other updates. Maybe we'll talk about those next week, to other mechanics and stuff. For example, the weapon mastery thing, because I did see that. I like that. I think that's cool. And on that note, really quick, too, on the rogue thing, you know, it's like, oh, look at how cool this is, where you can... You know, instead of doing sneak attack, you can do disarming, tripping, or poisoning, and it's like, whoa, dude, why can't everybody do that? There's a thing you could give the Ranger that would immediately improve the class. I don't know. It just seems that a lot of those things should already be there, or should be different depending on what you're talking about, like Bardic Inspiration and sneak attack. So thank you for the question, Kaylee. Let's keep moving right along, cranking on through. The next question we have is from Matt. And Matt asks, on a recent episode, Victoria asked for some recommendations for things to watch during her recovery. Get well soon. Yes, Victoria, do improve well soon. I'm in a similar boat, albeit for different reasons. My recovery is from a necessary surgery. It's going well, but for the boredom. I'm not much of a television watcher. Could you or chat share some of your favorite books or book series I need to read? Thanks, and have a good one. It's funny that I got this question this week about books, because my wife made me laugh out loud the other day when we were talking about something. I think we were watching something on TV, and something was brought up, and I said, oh, I have a book about that. And she was like, oh yeah, remember books? And it's like, yeah, I've gotten away from them. And I'm kind of a bookworm, so I've not read like I used to. And if I'm reading anything lately, it's it's manga. Reading anime. How about that? How's that? Well, I guess technically I do read anime because I watch sub, but anywho. When it comes to actual books, though, I would say some of my favorite stuff is classic stuff like The Invisible Man is a spooky and short read. I think it's only like 130 pages or something, if that, and it is scary. Same with Jekyll and Hyde. But also, I really like the Edgar Rice Burroughs original version of Tarzan from 1912. I think it's incredibly well written. In fact, I think the first couple of books from that series are really cool. Oh yeah, of course, subs over dubs. But those books, the Tarzan books, and then also my wife is a big fan of the Conan series and anything like John Connor from Mars, classics. Robert said original Dracula and Frankenstein. Yeah, no doubt. When I was a kid, I used to read these. I used to have a little collection of these books that were called, and I think I might still have them. They're called Great Illustrated Classics, and they were essentially books that were rewritten for children. They were classic books, but they were rewritten for children, so they were like 100 pages or something. But they would take like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or H.G. Wells' The Time Machine or whatever it was, and then they would just kind of like compress it for like a fourth grader. And so a lot of those stuff, any classic stuff. Let me read chat because they are popping off with stuff. All right, let's see. Dragonlance, Dark Tower, Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, The Kingkiller Chronicles by Pat Rothfuss, October Day by Shannon McGuire. Hope I said that correctly. The Vampire Chronicles, the Gore series, the Expanse series, Fitch Chivalry Farseer, Terry Pratchett. Oh, I also made a note for myself, like for authors, anything James Patterson or Stephen King, only because, I mean, obviously they're great writers, but also, more importantly, they're fast writers. They turn stuff out. So as a result, you have a lot of options. And if you really like them, you could just keep burning through. I mean, dude, I think one year I must have burned through like 20 or 30 James Patterson books. So you can burn through those. Let's see, what else? Terry Pratchett, another for Terry Pratchett. Frederick Paul Star Drive, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Three Musketeers. Oh, yeah. Man in the Iron Mask was one. John Carter stuff. Yeah. Tarzan and John Carter are good and short. Yeah, Tarzan's so good, man. The first one is just, I don't know what it is. I might be a little bit biased because my wife recommended it to me early in our relationship. And so I was excited to kind of read it and so that we would have something to talk about because it was one of her favorites. So I'm probably a little biased there, but I don't know. I think objectively it's just a really, really cool story. Looks like some love out here for Clive Barker, Neil Gaiman. The Saga of Recluse by Ellie Modesitt Jr. Yeah, I'm actually rewriting a novel. I mentioned that at the top of the episode. I had a fantasy novel that I wrote when I was in my early 20s. I think actually I was 20, 21-ish. And I've got about 150 pages written, although I know that because I wrote it when I was 20-ish, that it is likely to be improved upon from a writing standpoint. So I've just kind of been treating it as a rewrite, just kind of I don't know. But remember books? I don't know. I feel like lately I've been drawn to writing the book stuff. So who knows? Maybe I'll publish a series. That'd be pretty fun. I definitely want to publish the supplement. The Manthology, the Florida Manthology thing. That'll be cool. I've got some really neat ideas for that. All right. And then 12 by Jasper Kent. So, Matt, there's a whole lot of books. That's a bunch of books for you. So hopefully that gives you something to do, something to read. I'm sure you could find anything in that list. You might have read some of them, but... Oh, wait a second. Let's see. Pirate says anything by Kevin J. Anderson if you're into Star Wars. Yeah, you know what else, too, is a good Star Wars series? And it's like a young adult series, but who cares? I read it. I think I read it when I was like 15. So it's probably a little bit old for it, but it's just well written. It's the Jedi Apprentice series, which is it is Qui-Gon training Obi-Wan. And it's good. Lovecraft, NPCs by Drew Hayes, Horror Harrington Universe by David Weber. Cool, cool, cool. All right, well, hopefully that gives you an answer, Matt. Thank you for the question. Let's keep cranking through. This next question, according to my list of names, is from Jay. And it's a mechanical question for which I think I have the answer, but chat will be here to check me. So let's get into it. Jay asks, any easy way to determine the DC roll for when two contested spells like Counterspell versus etc., Dispel Magic versus etc., and such come up in game? Like Fireball spell cast at 6th level and Counterspell cast at 4th level. I know it's in the PHB. I have trouble trying to calculate the DC number. Well, first of all, thank you for the question, Jay. You're not alone in having difficulty calculating stuff. I hate doing it. It's my least favorite part of the game. When it comes to numbers, I'm not good at math, and I never liked it. But all of that's to say, from what I can tell from reading, and please chat, correct me if I'm wrong in this, it's my understanding that the standard calculation for a DC is 10 plus the spell level. So if you're casting Fireball at level 6, it's a DC 10 plus 6. It's a 16. When it comes to what your attack bonus is, from what I understand, the standard for that is 8 plus your proficiency. Excuse me. 8. Well, 8, yes. 8 plus your spell casting ability mod plus your proficiency bonus. Which at early level, I guess, would be 10. But at later levels, or excuse me, early level. Yeah, early level would be 10 because it's a +2. But at later levels would increase. So let's see. I just roll each spell again with a DC 20, and whichever is higher, that spell counters the other. Oh, that's a good way to do it. Pirate's just like, what the hell with all of that? Just roll DC 20. I mean, that's a cool way to do it. You could probably like build some sort of a calculator for it that could make it easier. There's probably an app for it, which I would have been able to find and share with you had I given myself more time to prep today. Could probably find the answer if I had some time, but in general, cheat sheets are a godsend for this kind of stuff. Yeah, no doubt. Like, and there likely is a chart for it in the PHB, so it's a little bit cheap of an answer, but I'd say find that chart in the PHB and then just copy it, just so that at a minimum you have it for reference. But there's probably some sort of an app out there. If Counterspell is greater than or equal, then it's a success. If it's lower than the DC, if lower, it's DC 10 plus spell level. If you don't want to use Raw, I suggest having the players make an Arcana check to see who wins. Oh, that's not a bad idea. Especially considering their classes, they would probably be pretty evenly matched statistically in those rolls. So that might be a cool way to do it, whether it's like an Arcana check or... I guess you could do like attack versus attack, but everything has its own DC, right? Which from it's going to be 8 plus the proficiency plus the level of the spell. So from levels 1 to 4, I guess that would be 10 plus the spell level. And then from levels 5 to 8, it would be 11 plus the spell level? Or is it always 10 plus the spell level? Does that increase? Does it tier up? I'm sure that there's a chart for it. Math is not the pirate's strong suit. All us pirates care about is the loot. Yeah. Trick question, just counterspell the counterspell. Oh, and then counterspell the counterspelling of the counterspell? Yeah, that could get you into a weird loop. I think that the general rule for it is 10 is the DC is 10 plus the spell level. Obviously, it depends on which edition you're talking about, but I think from the stuff that I looked up with 5e, it appears that it is 10 plus spell level. I would say it might be easy to just make yourself a custom spreadsheet. Did you miss the Chris question segment? No, not yet, but that's coming. Chris is the one that's like a follow-up / question, but that'll be a little later. But yeah, I think that the standard is 10 plus spell level, but it is going to matter based on the caster's proficiency, etc. So I don't have a great answer for how to make that easier, other than to look and see if you can find some sort of a calculator online that someone's done, or to just create yourself some sort of an organizational spreadsheet. You know who'd be great for helping with that? ChatGPT. Or even Google Bard. Just go talk to them like a person. Hey, I need help doing this. Help me plan this out. Help me create an easy way to organize this data. And it'll do it. It'll just be like, here you go. This is what it looks like. And then you've got it. At a minimum for reference. Because I don't think that the nature of that calculation is going to allow for any kind of like hard rule, at least from a raw perspective. I think to Pirate's point or to River's point, like you could just make them do opposed checks, whether it's like a standardized DC where it's just like, all right, just roll against the DC 20, or some sort of a standardized check against one another, whether it's Arcana or however you want to do that. I think that'd be, if you don't care about raw and you want to simplify it, then I'd say either one of those routes would be easy. But if you really care about like sticking to the rules as they're written out and sticking to those mechanics, then I would suggest creating a little cheat sheet for yourself that you always have on hand. The book is guidelines. Yeah, no doubt. I'm the same. Feel the same. So, thank you for the question, Jay. I hope that gives you an answer. I don't know. It wasn't great, but I think that at least points you in a direction, as our advice hopefully does on this podcast in this place. Make players arm wrestle me to figure out if the counter spell is successful. That'd be really funny if you had to like physically fight somebody or like do some sort of a physical challenge in real life for the game. Wouldn't be funny for me. No, sir. If it was just like, all right, you got to run for the next 20 minutes, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to play anymore. Oh. Thank you for the question, Jay. The next question that we have is one that came in this afternoon, and I'm excited about because it's a cool question. And it's from Tim. Right? Right. This one's from Tim. Tim asks, I'm going to be running an encounter with a beholder soon, and you mentioned that you like running beholders, some of my faves. Any tips on how to make it a good encounter? They are seeking a valuable magic amulet that allows them to double their level temporarily. The beholder, whoa, that's crazy town. The beholder will be wearing the amulet around one of its eyes. Any help would be appreciated. So, when it comes to beholders, I think that the first rule is you gotta petrify the spellcaster. you gotta eliminate the DPR, the magical DPR ASAP, and make the beholder a false Hydra. Yeah, could do that. That would be really scary. A beholder that's a false Hydra. Yikes. Because beholders have the party find the mascara of blinding. Yeah. I think with beholders, a lot of the cool plot stuff with beholders is the lead up, at least in my experience. So whether they're seeking out this encounter with the beholder or they're just coming across one in a cave, I think that the lead up is really cool. So them hearing things that are going on in the walls, thumping and skittering and, anything really. Wailing. Because keep in mind, we don't just have to use the beholder to tease. We can use NPC victims who are trapped in there that are screaming. I think a lot about the BBEG song. Wait, is it the BBEG song? No, it's the Eye of the Beholder song that I did with Jenny. That I think of because it's almost more about the foreshadowing and the lead up than it is the actual combat. So I would say make the beholder's base scary and make it so that they have to kind of evil eye. That's the name of the song. Didn't even remember the song. All of the eyes have amulets for that Indiana Jones moment of guessing which doubles and the others. Oh, that's a cool point from Scapelli. You could just put an amulet on each eye and they don't know which one the right one is. But is the amulet covering the eye? How's that work? Or I guess it's just like it just hangs over it, because it's a stalk. So yeah, you could do that. There's a way. That's a great idea. There's an immediate way to make it more interesting. You know which one has the correct amulet. You know which of the amulets is correct. And if you wanted to really raise the bar, you could make some of those incorrect amulets be bad things. So maybe in the process, you could even create a mechanic for it if you wanted to go all out. But if you put amulets on all of the beholder stalks, right, so that there were 10, and only one of them was accurate, they only have a 10% chance of getting the right thing almost immediately. Well, at least from the start, right? But then as they get them off of them, they might get the correct one right away, or they have a much higher chance of getting one that either does nothing or maybe even does damage. So maybe one of the amulets that they get, like as a spell reactive to when they remove it from the stock, it explodes and does like a D10 of damage or something. That's pretty cool. Make the fake amulet super cursed. So it's kind of a race to get the amulet. And having 10 of them is not as crazy when you consider it's a party. So if you've got 3 to 5 players, that's more than enough of each of them to try and get these things off of it. And in that vein, they're now more than just doing combat, but they're actively trying to get this amulet. It's more than just defeat the beholder and get it. It's like, let's try and get it now. If maybe you could come up with some sort of a time limitation that would get them moving on that. But beholder pities the fool. If the beholder's going to have all that bling on every eye stalk, it's required to talk like Mr. T. So, yeah, that's, I think, a cool way to do it if you wanted to do, like, amulets all over and then only one of them's real. I also think, yeah, I meant what I said about petrifying the spellcaster. Like, those glass cannons you want to get rid of as the beholder, because they're going to probably be the most versatile in attacking you. So the sooner you can kneecap the major damage dealer on the spellcasting front, then it's a lot easier for you to manipulate. And it's really scary for everybody else, because I actually did that in a campaign when, funny enough, Ethan, the guy who plays Barry, was the wizard. And they came up into a cave, and I think that this was like a 5 or 6 person party. Maybe 4 to 6, somewhere in there. Anyway, they came up into the cavern for the beholder, and I petrified Ethan immediately. And he was just like, oh. And it's like, yeah, bro, you're done. Like, we can't have you in here. I can manage the rest of these things, the rest of these people, these classes, but I can't deal with you. So I'd say get rid of the spellcaster quickly and then add more amulets. River says, if you really want to screw with your party, have the beholder be asleep when the party enters and make it dream something nasty into existence. Oh, that's really cool. In particular, if they don't know where the beholder is when they enter. So they might have to fight through his dreams to get to him. Pretty cool. Sentient amulets, Pirate says. Like mimic amulets. Yeah, one of those amulets has got to be a mimic. Because once it's removed, now you're dealing with this problem now. Could set up for internal drama by making sacrificing the main amulet the only cure for the curses from the others. Will the player save their friends or go for the power-up? Oh, that's a cool thing, too. You throw in a little decision-making trolley problem in there. Or it's like, okay, well, do you guys want to get this ridiculously cool buffed item? Or are you going to sacrifice it to remove the curses from the rest of the party? I like that idea. You disagree with using petrification against the party. It's just one person sits there and watches the game, not allowed to participate. True. Yeah. You can give the boss minions. That's true. That's a nicer way to do it. I really only did that because it was Ethan. And it wasn't that long of a fight, honestly. I think that they were able to vanquish him pretty quickly, and then it wasn't long later that they were able to return Ethan back to normal. So, but that is a nicer way to do it if you just have minions for them to fight, for them to focus on other things besides just the BBEG. Is there any place besides usual to post or trade campaign ideas and stories? I would say I'm not aware of any kind of like forums like that, but if you're talking about with us, with the pod, you can always send your emails to bardadvice@gmail.com. And I'll go through that stuff because there's one that I'm actually getting into next, which is for Chris, which is sort of a follow-up / update on his world. So, but hopefully you find something in there, Tim. I think that those are some cool recommendations from chat and from me. I think, yeah, managing from your end, managing that spell damage, I think is the most critical because you can kind of deal with fighters and barbarians and stuff, you know? Imagine helping the gold dragon you came across and end up doing quests for it only to discover it was a green dragon using a potion of alter self or even disguise self. Heroes got played. That's a cool idea. Just kind of like a deceptive dragon. When you get around to making the Discord, yeah, that's a good point, River. And I think, make it. I'm going to build it out. I'm going to make that the goal for the next week, is at least get the Discord up so that next week we can share it and we can get people in there. Because I think that would be a cool thing to have, just to bounce ideas off of each other. And then maybe you guys, anybody that wants to join the Discord, could help prepare for the podcast weekly and contribute to ideas and stuff there for segments or anything that we want to do. Before we get into brief chat, I want to go over this last question / follow-up, and it is, of course, from Chris, because since it's the last one and we've not had one from Chris this podcast episode, it's from Chris. So Chris asks / updates, on a recent episode, you answered about my Endgame style final fight. Yes, I remember this Avengers Endgame. You asked how far into the campaign we are, so I wanted to give you some more info. We've been playing for roughly 6 months and are about halfway through, kind of, as I keep adding to it. I have 3 players, each with a companion, the Stallhound I asked about before, a Pikachu, and a freshly hatched gold dragon. Some of the people they've met are secretly working for the BBEG. The campaign is centered around portal hopping from dimension to dimension, hoping to finally find the big bad, who is kidnapping people from each dimension to fuel his powers. They've traveled to, among others, a research facility from Fallout that caused them all to swap bodies for a while, Wonka's factory after Charlie took it over. There's an extra V in factory for you. Emerald Hill Zone from Sonic, Halloween Town, and they're currently working through Cyrodiil from Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Best one. Just bought a house there with the ability to teleport back from any plane. I'd love to get your feedback and any suggestions for future dimensions. I think it's super cool. I love stuff like that. It's similar to the Vacation Saga that we did, where I love the idea of jumping back and forth and stuff. In fact, I think we had a recent question about Grail campaigns, which I can't at the moment remember the name of the person who asked that question, but they submitted their own Grail campaigns, and I'm going to go through those next week, because I've mentioned that I wanted to go back to those and talk about those, and I'd like to share those with everybody next week, so we're going to talk about that next week. So what's happening here? Is the Discord going to allow voice chats? I don't know. I don't know about that stuff. I'm going to figure out all of that stuff this week, because it's a thing that I've kept talking about that I want to do. Corrupt creating communities that don't want them. Okay. If they're all pop culture places, spin the wheel on the MCU settings. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I immediately think in regards to your dimension hopping of stuff like Star Trek and, you know, the Marvel Universe, the DC Universe, any kind of nerd stuff. Ooh, Starship Troopers. That'd be a fun thing to do. maybe an anime world. That'd be really cool, depending on which one it was. But I mean, maybe like a Demon Slayer world where they have to go fight demons. Just steal from every movie, TV show, book, video game, etc. you could think of. No doubt. And also, here's the good advice. Here it is. So you're ready? Is everybody buckled up? Are you settled in for the good advice? Here it comes. Ask the players. Or rather, maybe not outright ask them, but see if you could maybe get a gauge of things that they like their interests that maybe that aren't even necessarily your own, to kind of bring them into something that they would want to do. In fact, that could be kind of a cool thing if maybe you just kind of let each player pick a thing, pick a fandom. So when it comes to the dimension porting, that way they feel like they're a part of it. And it makes it a little bit of a cool surprise for you, because you're just kind of like, okay, what do you want to do? And then it might be a property that you aren't familiar with, so you have to like do a little research into. That sounds like that'd be fun. World of umpires and not vampires. The Umpire Diaries. The city of Sigil also has a good amount of existing portals that can be found, the Forgotten Realms wiki. River says, send them to the world of I have no mouth and I must scream, so they can save the 5 humans that morning kept alive to torment. This. Introduce some things from Halo, Invader Zim, others after getting player ideas. Yeah. Any of that stuff I think is up for doing it. Have you done Pokemon? I mean, I probably, if this person has a Pikachu, or maybe they got their Pikachu from other circumstances and maybe they can go to a Pokemon world. Yeah, I'd say kind of anything is up for grabs. Just whatever stuff you like. It sounds way cool. Like, my feedback is that it sounds really dope and fun, and something that I would probably have fun playing. The answer I have, I think, is to just like stick true to the stuff that you like and that you know the party likes. And I also think that that's kind of a cool thing to let the players participate, where it's just like, all right, so we need, for the next 5 or whatever, the next 5 dimensions are going to be, it's up to y'all. So tell me where you want to go. And then if you know where they want to go, then you can kind of plan it out, and that'll be fun. So that is all that we have for questions this week. We're going to briefly do a little chat, but not too much. I have a lot of editing that I need to do, and somehow I ended up in a situation where I'm going to be opening at the store tomorrow, and that's fine. I'm not complaining, but those things where it's like a month out and somebody asks you for something and you're like, yeah, no worries, because like me a month from now, I don't even care about that guy. Totally fine. It's good with me. And then here comes the time to do the thing that you agreed to 5 weeks ago. And it's like, whoa, what? I don't want to do this. This is a nightmare. But I'm a man of my word, and I'll be there to open the store and do the stuff. So thank you, everybody, for joining this. Well, let's talk a little bit. I don't want to say goodbye just yet. Yes, to Buckaroo Banzai. Hint on this week's episode. Well, I'll just tell you, pirate. Tomorrow, Sunday is going to be the best of DM. After that, I'm not sure. I don't know. We might end up doing another best of for reasons. And then moving forward after that, we'll be doing different content. Still related to Dungeons & Dragons, still related to like TTRPG nerd stuff, still comedy, but away from the table. And maybe a little bit of a different presentation. But I think that ultimately it'll be good. I think overall it's going to be a good thing. So best of DM, and I'm still working on that cut. That's one of the reasons I don't want to go too far over an hour, just because I know that means more editing time for me, and I'd like to minimize the podcast editing time this evening so that I could do a little editing on the DM stuff before I have to try and get some sleep before I open in the morning. Future me is paying a lot of checks I've written for him. Poor fool. Yeah, dude. Future me and me right now, we don't get along. I feel like that's been the case for me forever. It's just, I don't know if it's the ADHD or what it is, but like, I also feel like just in general with time management, I feel like I'm either so busy that I can't breathe or I'm just bored to tears. And it's difficult to find a medium between that. Maybe that's just the duality of being a human being, but especially lately, I feel like I feel like I'm up to my ears in stuff to do, or I'm just kind of hanging around. So, but this weekend, at this moment, in this time, I am on the busy portion of that. And I kind of prefer that, I guess, to the boredom. But you're at the age of having to pay. Yeah. Lots of paying for stuff. Oh, man, and stuff's so expensive. Good episode this week. I needed a highlight after having no power from Sunday to Thursday and dealing with 100-degree heat. Yikes, McGillicuddy. Are you in Florida or Oklahoma? I know that they had a bunch of people that lost power recently. Dude, it has been so hot. And I'm from here. I've spent most of my life in Florida. I know what it is when it comes to the heat, when it comes to the torrential downpour rain, and that stuff has been crazy lately. I had to mow yesterday at like 1 o'clock because my battery on my my mower battery died before I could finish mowing, I think Wednesday. So then I had to get up before I went into work yesterday and mow, and it's a good thing I didn't have much to mow. I'll just say that, because it was crazy hot. And people are dying outside. It's not a joke. 110 here, 102. Yeah, it was it was my temperature, the thermostat on my car was fluctuating between like 99 and 101, which, that means it really feels like 110, 115. It's just been wacky. And I'm a little bit concerned about what hurricane season is going to look like. Denver's been rainy. Memphis. Oh, wow. In Memphis, it's that hot with no heat. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Jeez. I hope they fixed the issue. Oh, well, I guess you said from Sunday to Thursday. So I guess you're up and running again. Jeez. Sorry you had to deal with that, but Jackal had been dealing with a tree that fell to a tornado Sunday. It was a tall tree with the smoke and the heat. Not been a fun week. Jeez, sorry to hear that. Hope it didn't do too much damage. Yeah, it is gotten crazy and just like Mad Max on the road down here. Southwestern Ontario spent a couple of days this week covered in smoke from the wildfires up north. Yeah. That stuff's sad, and what are you going to do, Just keep swimming, I guess. It's getting fixed. Still a bunch of people without power. Storm just knocked out all the trees and all the power lines. It's so nuts that people would go without power for that long in that heat. That seems crazy to me. Hey, Avram. Sorry that you didn't get a notification. Hello, Avram, our favorite friendly neighborhood sorcerer. Better late than never. We're going to be wrapping up here relatively soon, but we're doing a little chat. Getting the smoke in PA as well. Yeah, I'm just trying to stay cool and hoping that hurricane season isn't so terrible. Ooh, and I've been watching Love Island this week. I've been catching up. I think Love Island might be the best reality show ever made. And I don't think it's close. And I've watched a lot of reality TV, folks, but the drama that is generated from Love Island, and at this point in the recent seasons, the production on picking people to get on the show, crazy. So crazy. Northwest PA is under an air advisory. It's just hotter than blazes of hell and damnation itself in Texas. Yeah, it's hot here too. And it gets, worse than the heat is the humidity, truly. It's heavy. It hangs on you like a blanket. It's not fun. And then the problem that we have here, and I don't know if this is true across the entire state, but it's most certainly true of North Florida. Hey, Nebraska. See you later, Nebraska. Have a good one. Thank you. Um, what was I just saying? Oh, yeah. So what happens is it's 100 degrees. It's so hot, and then it rains, and it just Jumanji, dude. And then sometimes lately we get these sun showers, and it's way bizarre because it's raining like a monsoon, but the sun is just like hanging out right there. And it's like, what is even going on? But we power through. We keep going and we move forward. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. I'm glad that I decided to do the pod. I considered not doing it because of the busy, but I think that it went well, and I'm happy that we kept moving forward for episode 28. A reminder before we go, please send all of your questions, concerns, complaints, criticisms, compliments to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. If you want to get some merchandise, you can do so by going to manshorts.com. Get yourself some shorts, get yourself a shirt, get yourself a mug, or a phone case. And if you want to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so at PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, at Yazik, YAHZICK. Just a quick reminder before we jet out of here, this episode was sponsored by World Anvil. It's the perfect online set of world-building tools for writers and game masters. If you go to worldanvil.com and use the promo code MANSHORTS, you can get 40% off any of their annual memberships. So head on over there, tell them the Bard sent you. We will be here next week. Again, same Bard time, same Bard channel. The audio for this podcast will be available tomorrow, Saturday at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Standard Time. I hope that everybody has a fantastic week and weekend, and we will see you next time.